Welcome to A River Worth Riding, 14 Rules for Navigating Life, from the book by Lynn Marie Sager. Rule 5. Instead of complaining about the wind, you could learn to adjust your sails. The power of strategy. As always, we'll begin with a story. Once upon a time, 4 brothers sailed the river. The eldest brother lived in his parents' crow's nest and dreamed of exploring the world. He was full of ideas, designs, inspirations, and stories. But since he never came down from his dreams never did come true. The second brother lived in his parents' galley, where he pored over maps of every shape and size. He knew about navigating every rabbit on the river because he'd read the very best books. He knew from experience that if he wasn't careful with his interpretations, people would laugh at him. So he was careful with his every thought. He also knew that the river could be an extremely dangerous place, so he sought out any fact that gave his life structure. He had a gift for organizing, plotting, and planning. In the end, he built a safe nest for himself in that galley, but he never discovered anything new to offer the river, or himself. The third brother kept himself busy working on his parents' deck. His nickname was Workhorse because he worked without stopping from dawn till dusk. He never wondered about what he was working on or why, because he was too busy working on whatever caught his attention. Work was his passion. He worked well, and he knew that without him, work would never get done. The fourth and youngest brother loved to spend his evenings in the crow's nest, where he would watch the sunset with his dreamy-eyed brother. They would talk and laugh about ridiculous stuff, but every evening, without fail, the eldest brother would inspire his youngest brother with visions of wonder and ideas that hinted at a dizzying truth. In the morning, the youngest brother would sit in the galley learning everything he could from his map-making brother. How to plan a journey, monitor progress, structure a life, and read the rapids and such. The brothers would sit together, their heads bowed low over books and writing lists, and the map-making brother would calmly help his youngest sibling to break down each vast dream into small, manageable parts. The galley became a place of comfort, where the youngest boy tamed the dreams that he had discovered in the crow's nest. Each afternoon, the youngest brother would help his middle brother Workhorse to work. Every so often, the youngest brother would show Workhorse one of the small, manageable parts of his fledgling dream. And since Workhorse was happy working on whatever was in front of him, soon Workhorse was working on his brother's youngest dream full-time. The boat that they built inspired the river. And can you guess which brother made captain and lived to circumnavigate the world? So which part of your mind is captain of your life? The explorer, the navigator, or the workhorse? Did you know that your mind has 3 parts, each designed to work as part of a complex team? Your explorer is located in the right hemisphere of your brain. It's that part of your mind that is good at discovering new ideas and asking creative questions. Its primary tools are imagination and reflective thinking, not to be confused with analytical thinking. It knows how to look at the same old patterns in life and discover new insights. It lives in the future. What I mean by that is it really isn't troubled by the past. It doesn't learn from the past, doesn't think about the past. It really just lives for questions, dreams, and imagination. Your explorer is always ready to take on the world, to start a new business, quit a job, stare at a window, make up a joke, write a novel, ask a challenging question, or even fly to the moon. Your explorer never worries about why it explores, because the explorer is not restricted by logic. The explorer knows that exploring is what human beings do best. Sure, the explorer is impractical. And sure, the explorer sometimes makes discoveries that create a huge mess for the rest of the mind. And sure, the explorer can be exhausting to clean up after. But without the explorer, we would still be at the mercy of the river. It was, after all, the right-brained explorer who dreamed up the very first boat. The explorer alone, however, gets nothing done. That is why we also have an analytical left brain. The left hemisphere of your brain contains the map maker, the chart reader, the navigator. Your navigator's job is to plan, straighten, and organize your life. If your explorer lives for questions, then it's the navigator that is looking for the answers. Its tools are analytical and deductive thinking, and it loves common sense. It lives in the past. What I mean by that is it makes its decisions based upon what is already learned. It looks for answers within logic, and it makes all of its decisions based upon common sense and upon past experiences. The left brain worries a lot about how you look to others, since it knows from past experience the pain of looking stupid. Your navigator lives a very methodical life. If you bring it anything new, that newness will feel out of place until your navigator can decide how to classify it. This is the part of your mind that needs to classify everything. So if you introduce anything that does not fit into a current classification, your left brain will usually classify it as unable to fit and therefore irrelevant. That's why the analytical left brain so often ignores the right brain's reflective insight. Reflective insight can be dangerous, messy, and uncomfortable. The analytical mind knows that its job is to organize, prioritize, scrutinize, and protect. It does its job well. In fact, it sometimes protects the explorer right out of a job. The left brain knows from past experience that the explorer can make foolish mistakes, and so it tends to disregard any uncomfortable discoveries as nonsense. The trouble is that the analytical mind also tends to forget who thought of boats in the first place. And what about that third part of your mind, the brother that I call the workhorse? Well, have you ever heard of cellular memory? If not, have you ever heard of habits? Or have you ever started doing something without thinking, caught yourself in the middle of the action, and then suddenly wondered what the heck you were doing? That was your workhorse. That was a habit. That was your cellular memory in action. We all do things without thinking because our cells actually hold the memory of past actions. You repeat any action often enough, and that action will become a habit. We often leave our workhorse in charge of our lives because our habits are just so good at getting stuff done. But we should never leave the workhorse in charge. Workhorse does not know how to think. Workhorse is accomplishment without thought, action without goals, reaction without wisdom. Your workhorse often assumes ridiculous stuff because your workhorse doesn't think. Your workhorse causes you to automatically head home when you plan to visit a friend. It's also your workhorse that causes most car accidents to occur within a few miles of home. Be careful. If you allow your workhorse free rein, your workhorse can take over your life and turn you into reaction without thought. All right, let's review the three parts of the mind we've looked at so far: the explorer, the navigator, and the workhorse. Remember, the explorer is right-brained, lives in the future, full of dreaming and creating and reflective thought. That's that kind of thought that just goes from one thought to another with no plan or structure. It's all about intuition and imagination. This is also the part of your mind that when you were a kid, they used to say, stop daydreaming, get to work. Then we have the navigator, which is the left brain that lives in the past, making decisions based upon the past. It lives for budgeting and planning, very analytical thinking, logic, common sense. Now, at this point, I always like to share two quotes attributed to Albert Einstein, two of my favorites. One was, imagination is more important than knowledge. The second one, and my personal favorite, is that common sense is nothing more than a collection of prejudices that we acquire by the age of 18. Okay, let's continue our review with our third brother, the workhorse. Remember, that is cellular memory, lives in the present, really totally focused on the now, doesn't even think about the future or the past. It's just totally focused on action and doesn't think about anything, really. And now let's consider that fourth brother, the one that made captain and lived to circumnavigate the world. I want you to think about how he spent his time. Remember that he spent his evenings in the crow's nest with his right-brained exploring brother, the one who lives for the future and loves dreaming and reflective thinking and discovering new ideas. But he didn't spend all of his time in the crow's nest. He would come down and in the morning spend time with his left brain navigating brother, the one who is able to budget and plan and analyze and think logically in order to break down those ideas and dreams into manageable, doable sections. Finally, he would spend time each day retraining his workhorse, retraining his habits, so that the habits worked for him, not against him. That really is the secret to strategic thinking, getting the three parts of our mind to work together in balance so that we can begin to design and live a worthwhile and strategic life. That last thought is so important, I need to repeat it. If you want to create a worthwhile life, you need to get all three parts of your mind working together in unison and moving towards the same point. But in most of us, the three parts are at war, lacking the skills to work together. In some people, the left brain is so busy saying no to new ideas that the right brain has stopped providing insight. In other people, the workhorse has been left in charge so long that their lives have become one long, unquestioning habit. And in still other people, the explorer switches directions so often that the navigator never has a chance to take soundings. The three parts of your mind are meant to work together. When they do work as a team, they have the greatest power. If you want your life to become a worthwhile journey, you need to declare peace and get them to understand each other. Teach them to respect what each has to offer. When you do, you will begin to think strategically. What is strategic thinking? I'd like you to consider the game of chess for a moment. You can't win chess with tactics alone. You can seldom win chess by just knowing how to move the pieces. Chess is a game of strategy, where chess masters say things like, checkmate in 8 moves. Well, how can chess masters predict the future? How can they assume your future moves? Well, chess masters are able to predict the future because they learn to think strategically. Before chess masters decide on a particular move, they imagine where their pieces would need to be in order to checkmate the king. They begin their move with an image of the final checkmate clearly in mind. Next, they ask themselves where their pieces would need to be in order to move into that checkmate. Once they have that image in mind, they continue plotting backwards, move by move, considering how their opponents will most likely respond to any move they make, until they have plotted a course to where their pieces currently sit. Only then do they actually make their move. Plotting your course backwards is the secret to strategic thinking. You begin by choosing your desired port, then you begin to plot your course backwards until you have created a strategy for reaching that port. Strategic thinking means that any action you take today is taken with your desired future plotted firmly in your mind. And yet so many of us take action every day with no clear image of what we would like our lives to become. When people forget to think strategically, they start to mistake actions for goals. Couples try to reach understandings by shouting. Parents try to teach that hitting's wrong by hitting. People try to reach agreements by shoving their opinions down everybody's throat. People are constantly taking action without thinking through the consequences of their actions. We need to start thinking strategically. Strategic thinking is long-term thinking. It requires patience, focus, and faith in your own planning. But mostly it requires that you actually plot a course before you open your mouth or take any action. It requires that you think things through. In strategic thinking, before you do anything, you ask your right brain explorer to imagine what an ideal scenario would be like. Usually, before your right brain has had a chance to answer, your left brain has already declared every scenario impractical and your habits have already seized ship. But if you don't give your creativity a chance to consider every aspect of a situation, you will never find a way to improve your situation. So don't let the left brain scuttle your thinking before you've even begun to think. Allow your creativity free rein. And once you've decided how you want your future to look, then learn how to order your left brain to steer towards it. Amazingly, once you do order your left brain to design a strategy, it usually manages to do so. So here's the bottom line on strategy. If you don't care where you're going, then any course will take you there. But strategy can get you where you want to go. Strategy can put you with those 3% of people who live life effectively, rather than with those 97% of people who live in their comfort zones. Begin by exploring your vision and deciding on a destination. Then map your course, plot your steps, and create a way to monitor your progress. finally, learn to retrain your habits so they work for you, not against you. And the first habit that you should train into yourself is the habit of checking with your captain before accepting orders from anyone else. When you choose your actions based upon strategic vision, then each action you take can bring you closer to a worthwhile ride. During the rest of this lesson, we're going to explore 3 steps to strategic thinking. We're going to look at exercises that can empower your explorer. We're going to have 12 tools that you need to have your explorer provide your navigator. And then we're also going to be covering something called a SPAR technique. It's a wonderful technique for retraining your workhorse, retraining your habits. As always, if you have any questions at any time during this lesson, please send them to Dear Navigator at globalpassportproject.com. Not enrolled in this class? Well, you can always join us at globalpassportproject.com, navigating life's online classes and videos. I look forward to working with you as you design a worthwhile life.